Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. It is a third-person shooter, hack and slash, and it is just a crazy, grimdark, dumb, kill all the aliens game, and it's really fun. I'm not a big Warhammer guy. I think writing Warhammer 40,000 is actually problematic. I think you're meant to put a K there, but we do what we want here on Back Pocket. I kind of hate the Warhammer 40k universe. I just think it's so cringe.
Why?
But just because it's like, it's so, to me, like, there's depth, obviously, because there's years and years and years and years of storytelling. It just feels like it feels like a shallow concept. But I know there is depth and I know there is lore. Just like, I don't know, it just has a shininess to it that doesn't really work for me. However, it leans into that, and the games in particular do. They are tongue-in-cheek. They like play to the strengths of all that really well. And because, you know, this is effectively a Gears of War-y style game.
I was going to say, it looks like Gears.
It feels like a game from 2014 in that it is really linear, level-based, lots of loading screens, lots of elevators, but it is beautiful in like its graphics, and it is the most impressive thing about it is the amount of enemies that it puts on screen at a time. So that is kind of like the reason this game exists, is to go, you're going to be a Space Marine and there's going to be 200 bugs running at you. And that feels cool.
It is bugs. Again, it's not. It's like
they're called Tyranids or something.
Sure.
And then there are other enemies as well. Again, I'm not heaps caring about that because the gameplay is fun enough. And all the guns are sick, and like, I know that anyone who is really into Warhammer would just be getting so much out of this because it's just references and references. This is a mission that's like 4 missions in, and you get a jetpack at the start of it, and it's just the coolest shit ever.
Yeah.
The game just is like, again, it feels like game design from 10 years ago where, and Call of Duty still does this in its campaigns from time to time when Call of Duty is doing well. It's just about giving you fun shit to play with. Every mission is pretty quick, and then it gives you something else cool to do. And that's really fun. It is 3-player co-op, or right now I'm playing with Wild and James. And you play with AI when you don't have co-op companions. So there's always 3 characters. They're always talking. There's like story happening in the missions. Between missions, you go back to the mothership or whatever it is, and there's dialogue there, and there's cutscenes there. So it feels like a really, again, it just like has old game design sensibility, but with really modern tech and game feel. So it's really satisfying. The combat is awesome. The guns are all really cool and they feel good, but the melee combat that's baked into it is really fun as well. You, in a Bloodborne style, kind of like rewarded for your aggression in damaging enemies and then executing them with like an execute button. You get your armor back. So you're encouraged to get in there, and particularly with the bigger enemies, you get more armor back. So you're playing aggressively like that. And then when you lose health, that is lost permanently unless you use some abilities, but there are health packs that are scattered throughout the mission. So you're kind of using those as sparingly as possible and trying to, like we should see here, an execution on a big guy. And it's just gory and bloody and cool. And then within that melee combat system is light attacks, heavy attacks, and counters. And counters open up the ability to get a good shot off. So you'll see an indicator that you can then get a powerful shot that'll stun them. That might knock them into an execute. It becomes a fun little dance of, when do I get in close and start playing with melee, and when am I trying to keep my distance, dodge the unblockable attacks, and get as many shots out of my gun as I can into these things.
Which seems rather, like, overall, all those put together, kind of technical for a game that, as you said, is just downright fun, but has some complexity at least through that combat dance.
There is a section of the player base, and particularly the hardcore Warhammer fans, who are playing on the hardest possible difficulty. I'm playing on normal, and it's like the right kind of challenge for me. Like, I'm not dying. But I feel cool, and I feel like I could get close to. I've died enough, but it's not like it's ever been. I've not hit any roadblocks. But there are people who are playing this and trying to be really clever about how they work tactically together as 3 players, and when you're giving your teammates the executes to get their armor back and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of cooperation, and there's a real challenge to the harder difficulties, which makes this combat system really sing, because it is quite a complex dance when you need it to work really well for you.
Because a lot of these like horde shooters and brawl are just literally, how much can you just keep your reticle where it needs to go and to spam melee when things get hectic versus actually be an efficient soldier. But again, it just like you said, this just screams like it's a Friday night. I'm gonna play this game. Like I don't know why that just says like you're just gonna have unashamedly that kind of Gears, but maybe even just a little more pokey,
It's sick.
more.
And I mean, the first Space Marine game was really well received. This one is great, and I've only played the campaign, and that's all I'm really interested in. But there's like heaps of other There's 2 other big modes that is the whole game for some people. They don't care about this. There's like a PvP mode, and which I think is a bit of a has some objective. I don't think it's PvPvE, but it has some stuff in it. It might be. And then there's one other thing, and I'm like, I haven't even looked at them.
Oh, that's just where you just sit there with a paintbrush and you just slowly.
Well, I mean, you joke, but that was in that Brandon Sanderson game, right? I can't remember what it's called. You could paint the figures and then play a tabletop.
Yeah.
How does it? And I don't know enough about Warhammer to really.
None of us do.
Yeah. So, but do we know how it relates back to like the physical game? Like, if I'm a player of like Warhammer 40k,
which of course you are.
Oh, definitely. Me and Henry Cavill catch up all the time.
Yeah.
But
you and your suits.
Yeah. He wears Superman. I wear a business suit. It's very, above board. But then, are they people that want to play this as well, or are they 2 different worlds?
They are 2 different worlds, but the people that are I mean, there's obviously heaps of overlap in the Venn diagram of people who are playing tabletop games and playing video games. Yeah. And the people who love Warhammer 40k, this is a video game for them. And they're not always good. The video games in the Warhammer, whether it's 40k or just the fantasy version.
Was Darktide part of the 40k universe?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right. Different,
that's 40k.
It's
Darktide.
40k
That's
universe,
the
but not the Marines. It was some other characters from it, I think.
There's so much like there's like the ones that wear the black armor.
So it's from the same
the prophets.
It's
or
from
whatever.
the same lore book and universe, but this is a faction which is you play as
the Space Marines. I think are really favored in the lore of 40k because they're like the gung ho, like it's the big brassy stuff. It's less. I mean, there's like there's like a magic system in 40k because it's built off the fantasy version as well. But now they fly through space. So yeah, there's like factions for sure. I think people just like this faction because of the kind of bravado of it and the
I remember always seeing the books and stuff and like seeing these
yeah.
characters standing on a hill, like, or the figurines looked fantastic in this like these characters. Yeah. So like I get that, but it was a faction of a bigger universe. This game is we're focusing on crew from that faction and their adventure that the Space Marines go on.
This looks like to me StarCraft 2 zoomed into a first player.
Yeah.
I
mean, they are. That's the same
inspiration,
same sort of
vibe.
Yeah, and the same sort of looks of the Space Marines and StarCraft, and Marines and StarCraft.
How does it compare to Helldivers? Because it looks
nothing.
It gives a
like
vibe.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a third-person shooter, so it's like it in that way.
And bugs.
Sure. Yeah, it's a space game, so there's bug enemies. But
it's like Halo.
They don't. Yeah. They don't play anything like each other in terms of, or if the campaign obviously is not in Helldivers.
But like you said, probably closer to Gears, kind of in the.
It feels like a Gears of War game in the way that it's delivering narrative and in the chunkiness of it and that feel. Yeah. Both great games, but yeah, there's enough distinction in gameplay that they're not really. I wouldn't put them in the same category at all.
Are you going to finish it?
Yeah, I'll finish this campaign. I will. Yeah, I played a big session and was like, I played a couple of nights and I was like, okay, I've probably seen enough. I'm 4.5 hours in, so I'm in the back half of it now, I think. And then I just kept playing, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of really digging just how it's changing scenery, and I've just encountered the new enemy faction to fight after the escalation of the bugs to like the big boss bugs and stuff. So it's there's enough interesting stuff going on to keep me engaged. I mean, I don't care about the story, but I think the set pieces are strong enough.
This, even what we're seeing here, that like, I know that's background footage, but I have the amount of bugs pouring into this area, and I have seen some clips of people on socials who are playing the game going like, having that jaw-dropping moment of suddenly there is just an absolute mob of these things flying.
It happens every mission.
Does it wear off? Because it looks cool. It did look very cool.
No, it doesn't really, because it always feels like it's surprising you, and it like you get bottlenecked into a, it's a different feeling space.
Yeah.
So it feels like a different combat scenario, but it's the same thing. It's like, here comes the swarm, and it's like, oh shit, and they pile on top of each other so they can climb up to higher areas and stuff.
It's always fun.
On the PS5 Pro, there's double the swarm.
Get out.
Imagine.
Double the swarm.
There's the same swarm at double the frame rate.
Yeah.
All this flying
It does
stuff.
kind of look. It
but this
all
is all
looks so
this
much
is
like
all in
Gears.
Gears of War, yeah.
It's
But
all
Gears,
Gears,
where
yeah.
someone just turned the vibrance up a bit and was like, "Hey, not everything has to be like super
Brown.
like depressing and brown and grey," which I know the later Gears stepped away from a little bit, but it's that was taking itself so seriously. I know this does too, probably in the lore, but the people playing it are like, you said, it's tongue in cheek. It's like,
Yes.
this is bombastic. It
is serious. It is, I guess, self-serious, but the self is unserious. Like it is like it's true to its lore.
Yeah.
But the lore is so full of machismo and but in not a Gears way that's like toxic in a just, I don't know, big way. It's just big. It's just a big game.
It's
cool.
kind of Time Crisis-y, like an old school arcade shooter that just
looks-
keeps coming swarm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looks fun.
Yeah, and again, this is just the campaign of people who are into this game are getting a really, really good feeling game, and they're getting a lot of game.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a no-brainer. I'm
Even-
sure it'll be on someone's game of the year.
Just to finish on the fact that you pointed out there is a PvP mode that I saw some footage of that looks very much attacked on, like, it comes with a campaign, but it should have a 4v4 run around a map area, and just, is that balanced? I'm not sure, but it just looks like a fun extra thing to
we'll
do
give it
when
a
you
shot.
finish with the single player. Gears did that too. It was like, is this good multiplayer? I'm like, I don't know, but it's here.
Yeah.
I'm going to play some
But
of it.
they built an esport around Gears.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
liked Gears Multi
Okay.
Yeah. So then
Sorry.
you might be watching
back in the day.
Pro Space Marine 2 tournaments
Space Marine.
soon.